Welcome back, folks. We all know about the tragic killing of 43-year-old Kristie Thibodeaux, who actually worked in the French Quarter. She was sitting inside her vehicle in the 700 block of St. Peter Street the other day. She was approached by three individuals who were attempting to rob her. Jerben Albarek, 17, Joshua Aviala Bonifacio, 19, and a 15-year-old juvenile had been booked with second-degree murder and attempted armed robbery. The bonds for the two adult suspects were set Tuesday at $1.1 million each, and the juvenile was on electronic monitoring. And there's a lot of information that's been revealed about that, and here to provide some of it is Jill Dennis. She is the director owner of the Assured Supervision Accountability Program. They're in the electronic monitoring business. This was not their monitor that was utilized. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jill, if you would, for the benefit of the listening audience, where did this go astray relative to this electronic monitor?
Probably back in, I think it was October of 23, when the story broke that juvenile court can't live track their juvenile offenders, and nothing changed. I think that's where this went off track. But for Ms. Thibodeaux, I believe it went off track the moment this juvenile was non-compliant and somehow just fell through the cracks and got added to a stack of evidently 4,000 juvenile warrants that is sitting on a desk somewhere in NOPD.
So we have, do we know how many folks we have on electronic monitoring in juvenile court at the present time?
No, sir. And
Are you guys providing any electronic monitors for juvenile court?
We don't know. We don't know any of that. The amount of work that it has taken so far just to pin down the fact that this 15-year-old was in fact wearing an ankle monitor. If that ankle monitor was operational or not, which it was not. The amount of work it took I think almost 2 weeks for us to actually be able to, maybe it was a week and a half, to be able to pin down that this offender actually had an ankle monitor on and that ankle monitor was not working. That to me is insane. And I can't wait until January when the new law comes into effect.
Do we know what company did in fact provide this ankle monitor?
It's my understanding it's a state program that OJJ uses. It has nothing to do with the city. It's a state program. I believe I've been told that it's the same program that is used by probation and parole. They have just donated a couple of bracelets to OJJ. Now, who exactly is the person that's supposed to be supervising those ankle monitors? That question has not been answered.
And is there any it's hard for me to understand. We're utilizing a tool, right? That's an alternative to incarceration.
Yes.
But yet we're utilizing it knowing full well that we're not compelling compliance. Does that pretty much sum it up?
So look, for anybody that doesn't understand, the technology is there. It's not a technology issue. Is there garbage equipment that you could get and try to use? Yes, there is. But the new law also states that device has to communicate within a certain amount of time. But the technology is there. The fact that our cell phones themselves live track us, it knows where we are at any given minute. An ankle monitor, that is its purpose. And what is happening is it's just the provider of that ankle monitor is not using that technology to its full extent at the detriment of public safety.
So they're really misleading the public. I mean, the expectation is if we put somebody on the electronic monitor that there's certain things that it's going to be able to deliver for us. And they're doing this knowingly and intentionally. If they have 4,000 backlog on warrants and they're not really aggressively dealing when they violate, then they're misleading the public. They're lying to
That's
us.
correct.
I mean,
That's correct. I can give you an
you don't,
example of how it would work in the real world, with someone that is supervising an ankle monitor and actually making sure that the public and the victims are safe. We had a situation on Friday where an offender came from Baton Rouge into the New Orleans area, committed property damage at two separate addresses, went to the victim's work, beat the victim up, got back in her car, drove back to Baton Rouge, and went get her nails done. We were able to, through the assistance of NOPD, obtain copies of the warrant, and also get the victim to a safe place and make sure that we knew everything that was going on, and she knew that we were working on it. And through the state police was able to have this offender in custody Monday morning. And that's how fast this works. And everybody was tracking this offender. Everybody knew what was going on. Through that time, she even tried to refuse to plug in her ankle monitor. We were able to get the ankle monitor plugged in. There's so many things that happened, but we were going to make sure that not only was the public.
Coleman, did we lose our caller?
Oh.
No, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We were just through all of that process. That's how fast this works. And so when we say there's 4,000 warrants sitting on NOPD, and it appeared that the juvenile system was trying to put this on NOPD. NOPD is very proactive when you're communicating with them. So that in the real world, for a provider that is actually caring about public safety and actually using the technology to its full extent, it does not allow for an offender to be running around with an ankle monitor that is deactivated out there committing robberies and murder, and it take a week later for anybody to understand or know what was happening.
I've referred to juvenile court as kind of the star chamber. They work in the shadows of society. Nobody really knows what's going on over there. It seems as though you're frustrated by it as well, because if you're telling me that it takes a week, and no one from the court, it seems as though, stood up and said, this is the deal, right? Because they don't have to. They hide under the juvenile code, and they're not required to do certain things. They're running all these programs. They're not required to publicly report out to the public. So we're just in the dark about everything. And in my view, that has to change. And a lot of that will change, my understanding is, as a result of this legislation that was put forward by Representative Tim Kerner, signed by the governor, and goes into place in January. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. One of the biggest things that gets me when I think about this, the whole thought of this new law was because of what happened in St. Francisville when a victim was killed by the offender because a provider wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. That was the whole reason. That was the whole thought behind the law that came into effect. Because of the criminal element of that law, we had to give providers a chance to get into compliance, which is why it doesn't go into effect until January. And I just hope and pray we don't have any other victims between now and then. And I'm hoping and praying that the Attorney General is going to be able to pursue and find justice for Ms. Thibodeaux. But that juvenile escaped. Just because you're out on an ankle monitor doesn't mean you're out free. You are still in custody. That was an escaped juvenile. How long was that device deactivated? And why didn't the public know that we had a violent offender escape from a jail? It's a digital jail, but it's still a jail. And no one knew about it. Because I know, and what we do, we have people that violate. We have people that cut off their ankle monitor and they're escaped. Within an hour, the news media knows what happened. Everybody's looking for this person. Warrants are issued. NOPD has pictures. They're actively looking. The state police, whoever it takes. Everybody is out there looking for that offender, and that offender's picture is everywhere. This is another escape from our juvenile system that was swept under the rug, and it really makes me angry.
Well, that's the difference between caring and not. and
But there
understanding
has to
the
be something that we
responsibility
can
that you
do.
have to society and not. And the problem that we have, and I'm going to repeat myself again, is that we don't know what these folks are doing. And we're not even
Right.
able to judge because there's no obligation to tell us the story, to tell us the truth. They just lurk in the shadows of society. And we have to shine a light. I think the whole system has to be open now because we're not going to
We
know.
have
How
to
do
we
we
have to
judge?
remove that iron curtain. The iron curtain
Yes.
has to be
How
removed.
do we judge the effectiveness and efficiency of the system, the players, and otherwise? We go into the voting booth and we vote for people we don't know anything about. We're sending them back to a courtroom that's critical to the safety and security of our family, our kids, our parents, and otherwise. They're killing us, and we don't know anything about what these judges are doing.
Right.
And if the AG and the governor, if they don't accomplish anything else, if they could just open up this juvenile court and shine the light on it, they got me. Because we're seeing this over and over and over, and it's not just in the city of New Orleans. It's in every parish, as you well know. It's across the state. It's across this country, where we have coddled kids who grow up in a culture of criminality, and we put them through the system, and we return them back to their criminal parents. And we think that we're going to have a different outcome, and that we can convince the public that they're safe, they're secure, and that we're on top of this. That's all bullshit. That's not what's happening.
Yep, I agree. And so one of the things that we've been working the last few months on is all of our names are public record. They're all available on our website. If you go to asaprelease.org, we have a place where everybody that's enrolled in our program, it's a public view. It only gives name, date of birth, and the case information. And we've been working on that diligently because I would like to see a state registry. I would like all providers to have to go into that system, just put in the name, date, what the court information is, and that what program they're in, who is the manufacturer of that device. Once we get all of that in, because back when the St. Francisville murder happened, Times-Picayune put out a release of information to every jurisdiction to find out who was on an ankle monitor. Do you know only 6 could give them a list, and they didn't even know if those 6 were a complete list? Some of them said there's no way of telling who we've ordered on an ankle monitor. Very few said we don't use ankle monitors. But only 6 could provide a list out of all the jurisdictions across our state. And to me, that's insane.
Well, it's insane because it's emblematic of none of them giving a damn. We're electing people. They're paid good money, and they go and they take these jobs, and they don't give a damn. They don't care. Because anybody that cared would make sure that there was a list somehow, even if it's a manual list. That's what the clerk of the court does. Keeps a list that this is what's happening. This individual is on electronic monitor. And if they're not even doing that, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
We're paying people. We'd be better off without the system in many respects because it's not working in a large measure at all.
Well, House Bill 874.
Blow it up and let's start over.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
House Bill 874 actually fixes that. I have to disagree with just blowing it up and starting all over because I don't know what criminal court would look like with 400 offenders standing in the hallway with us taking their ankle monitors off so they can start all over. That would be a mess.
I don't mean it in that. I don't mean it in that way. What I mean is from a law, figuratively speaking, from a law perspective, it's got to get blown up. All of these folks that have this progressive ideology that this is all about, this and that and everything else. We need to start at the opposite end of the spectrum, and then let's see how that works. And if there's abuses, then we retreat a little bit. But we started at the wrong end. And we're caught in this quagmire. No.
If there's no transparency, you can't see. Right.
No. Exactly. No one. Not even the folks that are working inside the system. That's how bad this is. We will be right back. Thank you so much. Jill Dennis, Director, owner of Assured Supervision Accountability Program. Appreciate your time, your insight. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, folks.
It's one thing falling in love with a house.